Good morning, everybody. And today is our 13th episode of the series Help, I'm Stuck at Home. My name is Karen House, and this is Leanne Hunt. So today our topic is so many losses. And it is quite sobering, Leanne, when I look at the statistics at the moment from COVID-19 around the world. And this is particularly sourced from Channel News Asia as of today, which is the 8th of April, 2020. And I've got here as confirmed cases 1,419,105, and then reported deaths as of today is 81,653. So those are really sobering statistics. And perhaps you can tell us, what is the mood like at the moment? What do you see the mood as?
I think it's inevitable that it would be all over the place, depending on where you're looking. Obviously, the shock factor is still there. Everybody who is dealing with the new outbreaks all over the place, there's still the shock. We're still seeing that denial amongst some people, saying it won't get to me, particularly amongst communities who have their who have sort of their faith in different sort of protective means, let's say. We've got still a lot of anger, accusations, blaming, those kind of things we're seeing even on the global scale.
Yeah.
We're looking at the bargaining, where people are sort of trying to negotiate some kind of salvation, if you like, especially economically, because people are sort of trying to juggle this difficult balance between the lockdown and the economic fallout from that, which is going to be very, very severe.
Right.
And I think that more and more people are sort of falling into this depression or sadness phase, where there is a resignation to the fact that this is something that our world is just suffering, and it is going to be catastrophic in some ways. There has been talk of it being, and I think this is pretty much the analysis of the experts, it is as big a catastrophe as the Second World War, and it's going to have as big a mark on our history.
Yes, well, it is, and I've been talking about it in my videos as a black swan, because it is certainly unprecedented and hugely unexpected and massively affecting the world. So what are you feeling personally as you speak, Leanne?
To be honest, I'm feeling a lot of curiosity. It's just such an interesting time for me. Having gone through the sort of period of lockdown almost on a personal level because of being housebound as a visually impaired person, I'm pretty familiar with the stages, because I think one doesn't necessarily just move linearly in one direction. It's very much, depending on what is coming up for you, you sort of switch back and forth. So you might actually reach acceptance in one area, and then suddenly something else comes up, a curveball, and then you're thrown back into anger or something, and you've got to go through those stages again. So I've said there's been for me a sort of a sadness when I've reflected on the losses that people around the world are suffering, and particularly I think of the children that are going through this era, and the idea of a childhood that is unscarred, unblemished, from pain. I grew up with that.
Yes.
But I'm just thinking the children growing up today are seeing some really horrific things on TV. But from the point of view of being curious, I just think it's such a fascinating time when you step back and you think about this as like a transition period. We are going through something where we are not going to be the same on the other side of it. It's really I've been dwelling on that and sort of letting my imagination go. And one can't actually predict what it's going to be like, but I think it's fascinating to consider, to look at the options and to imagine.
Yes, it indeed is. So if we are in this period of transition, perhaps you can speak a little bit more about that transition, Lee.
Yeah, well, I think we have to face it. Transition is hard. It really is. And the best way to talk about it is in terms of metaphor.
Right.
One interesting thing is that in childbirth, there is a stage called transition.
Yes.
It's a stage of labor where the mother goes through this excruciating pain because her contractions are really, really strong and her cervix is opening so that the baby can descend. It's
Yes.
that period where you almost want to sacrifice your own life, like get me
Right.
out of here kind of thing.
Yeah.
It is so most of us
Extreme.
go through
Very
it with
extreme.
drugs,
Yes.
or we have a Caesar or something to prevent us from having to go through that. But as a natural process, before all these drugs and Caesars, came about, mothers gave birth
Yeah.
without any relief, and it was simply you had to go through this transition from being
Yes.
a pregnant woman to being a mother, and there was no getting away from it. Now, if you take that analogy, it's really interesting to think that we are in that sort of a stage now. It's
Mm.
incredibly painful, but this is the way that nature allows us to transition from one stage to another. So if you
Yes.
imagine that we are in a stage of, we are on the brink of delivery,
Right.
something that has been
Okay.
maturing on the inside in the unseen places is actually going to come out and be seen on the outside. And I think that is exciting. It's also a little daunting. We don't know what it's going to be. None of us can predict. And I think the other thing to remember is that, well, let me put it this way: it's a transformation. We are going to be
Yes.
transformed into something different. I think if you look at 6 months ago, if you'd sort of said, what are you imagining for the future? People would have been saying, well, the future human is going to be like this and like that. Well, we might be seeing the future human, in not such a long time from now, where people actually are just different. We are just,
Yes.
completely different. Um, it's also a sort of a metamorphosis. And I think if we take
Yeah.
the analogy of the caterpillar becoming a butterfly, caterpillar eats and eats and eats, and he builds a cocoon, and then he goes inside. And what happens inside that cocoon is actually a dissolving.
Mm.
He is not in control. He doesn't plan it, and he doesn't know what is happening to him. And he basically just, something happens to him, and when that being, if you like, when that life comes out again, it's completely different. It's been reconfigured into literally a different physical form
Mm.
with different capacities. Now that caterpillar that was earthbound is now a flying insect,
Yes.
Um, we don't know, and we
Mm.
have to surrender to it, because if we try and control the process, we are going to get more into a sense of panic, I think, than we would
Yes.
otherwise. If we can, by faith, just surrender to the process and say like a mother in childbirth, it's natural, it's normal, this is how it
Mm.
happens.
Yeah.
And my DNA is in control.
Yes.
God is in control. Its force is much bigger than me. And
Mm.
we surrender to that. I think this transition could lead us into something really amazing, but we have to
Yes.
be able to look at it from that bigger picture perspective, where we say, this is about the world's future. It's not about our plans. We are
Yes.
going to lose what we've planned for. That's just going to be part of the losses.
Yes.
um, we're going to lose that. But what is going to come is a whole new beginning that we're
Mm.
going to be able to embrace, providing we are open to it.
Yes, that's beautiful. It's really amazing, those words using transition, transformation, metamorphosis, and so
Mm,
that huge change, and certainly a different view, so that we have this almost an opportunity just to
mm,
move through it, and as you say, let it go rather than fight it, because
mm,
we're going to come through the other side, and it is
mm.
going to be a new day. So
Yes.
yes, so let's have a
Um,
thought about that today. Thank you so much. So
mm,
we're now concluding day 13 of our lockdown from COVID-19 in South Africa. And so tomorrow we'll move on to episode 14. Have a lovely
mm.
day, everybody, and thanks so much.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Good. Bye bye.